first corporate scrutiny of 2022, and it's the first of 2022 for this committee and the last for me. But as I move on, it will be left in good hands. Before we kick off properly, I'll just go through this fire procedure. In the case of an emergency, there are no planned fire drills during this meeting. If you hear the fire alarm sound, please treat it as a real emergency and evacuate the building via the nearest safe escape route. The nearest escape route is via the stairs to your left as you leave the council chamber or public gallery. Exit via the door at the back of the building and walk across the inner car park to the evacuation point, which is the pavement opposite the police station. The lifts can't be used in the event of an emergency. Please do not re-enter the building until you're advised it's safe to do so by a member of staff. Thank you. Right, members. Well, I have apologies from Councillor Spink and Councillor Quigley. Everybody else is here, I do believe. Right, so to the minutes, members. So approval of the minutes. Any comments or any proposed and seconded? Okay, lovely, thank you. I'll just bear with me while I autograph it. Okay, members, any declarations of interest? Councillor Midland.
Thank you, Chair. I think I've got to just to quickly declare that as this is a scrutiny committee, I'm involved with working on the policy for electric vehicle charging. It's not a pecuniary interest, it's just a, so say you're aware. I'll just not say anything.
Thank you for that. Councillor Lee.
When we talk about the biosphere, and I think energy comes into that, I am a trustee director of White Community Energy.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Palin.
I just wanted to raise that I am a member, paid by the local authority in a local authority maintained school in regards to item 7G. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. That's everybody. Right, moving along, we have public question time. I don't see anybody up above, but we do have a public question, a written one. And this comes from Susan Jones of Newchurch to the Corporate Scrutiny Committee. The question is, can the Draft Island Plan Strategy Task and Finish Group confirm that they have fully understood the Council's own published evidence base, including the Assessment of Housing Supply September 2020, 3 Dragons, which provides actions that the Isle of Wight Council will need to take in order to provide evidence of the government that the housing target is not achievable and a lower target set. Can all members confirm that they have fully understood the Draft Island Planning Strategy Evidence Paper, D2, confirming the need to increase the range of larger sites to overcome the 7 barriers of delivery of affordable housing? If the Council has progressed in overcoming the 7 barriers, please can you advise on where this is reported annually? If it has not, how does the Council consider a letter received by the Government asking for the provisions of paragraph 11D of the National Planning Policy Framework to be removed will be received? I have a response from Councillor Spink, who's the chair of the Task and Finish Group. All of the documents referred to in the above question were taken into consideration in the course of producing the Task and Finish Group report. The remainder of the question is a matter for the Cabinet to answer. So much for that. That's that. Okay. Moving on. Progress. We have our progress update. Members got any comments, thoughts, or questions on that? I probably have one simple question, and that was, but he's not here, Councillor Quigley. I was going to ask about this council procurement social value. He was going to be making some progress on that, but I don't know where he's at with it. So we'll find that out later. Do you happen to know anything, Paul?
No, I'll find it.
Okay. And there was something else that was going to be reported, sent to be circulated this 9th of November at the bottom here. Details of the strategic plan aimed at reducing and reoffending. That was going to be circulated, but as far as I know, it hasn't been.
We have been in contact with the appropriate officer and we're dealing with that as we speak, Chairman. I've just had an email. Yeah.
Okay, we're dealing with that like we were last time. Lovely, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Lilly?
So with the commercialisation strategy, it says in the actions and outcomes, awaiting information on the time frame. Have we got any further information?
No further, nothing further. Apparently not.
Can we pursue it?
Can we? Yes, Paul, please, but much pursuing. Okay,
I was going to ask the same question.
Oh, right.
I was going to ask the same question, but can we request at least some guidance from Cabinet outside of this meeting as to when we might expect that to come forward?
Yes, I think that should be possible. I don't know. Yes, Councillor Jarman.
Mr. Chair, if I may assist. So the commercialisation strategy is being revisited at the moment, and I think it'll be out quite shortly now.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Councillor Lilly.
Can it be on a future scrutiny committee agenda?
Well, it can, yes. We can put it on the work, if it's not already on the work plan.
Items on your committee.
Not for me to say.
Ask him, not them.
I was asking Paul.
Yes. Yeah. Chairman, once we get the time frame from the Cabinet member, we'll insert it in the work plan.
That's fabulous. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Anyone else? Back to this is agenda item number 5, therefore, which is commercial property acquisition strategy, investment strategy. This was a report that went to audit committee, and the chair of audit requested of myself that we bring it to scrutiny to look further into it, and that's why it's here. Members, have you got any questions on this matter? I will add that speaking yesterday to the chair of audit, he's not able to be here tonight, not even virtually because he's working, but his main concerns were the fact that it's been brought in-house rather than Portsmouth City Council continuing with it. What effect does that have? And the fact that there were some vacant properties that he's had some concerns about that. Now, on that, can anybody answer where in the report it says that they were vacant? Are they still, or have they now been filled? Does anybody know? No. Can you put your microphone?
Sorry, Chairman. Yes, it is in the report. I refer you to section 8.4. For those of you who have the papers. The effect of bringing it in-house has been to save us money. The cost of managing it in-house afford us more opportunity and cost us less than it was before, so that is a good thing. And there is a dynamic element within the turnover in those properties, and there have been some of them that have been empty for a while, and great efforts are being made to conclude those arrangements.
Okay, thank you for that. Cost us less, but can we manage it though within our own resources?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Councillor Quirk.
Audit committee, the internal auditor reports a RAG red, amber, green. So the audit committee receives from the internal auditor a RAG risk assessment, red, amber, green. Does this moving this in-house change the status of the risk according to the RAG assessment?
Shall I answer, Chair? No, I don't believe it does. I think it actually improves the risk assessment because we're able to keep a much closer eye on what's actually happening and to be more intimately involved in the procedure of managing it on an ongoing basis. Yeah. I think bringing it in-house is absolutely the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you for that. I have a question on page 21 at the bottom. It says all investments must initially provide income yield equal to or above the council's required rate of return, IRR. Now that's 2.64%, as I understand it. Does that fit in with that? Is that one equal to the other? Yes, please, Councillor John.
Yes, so going back on the original papers, which were produced, I have to say, some time ago during the previous administration, the original idea was that the rate of return that should be looked at was around 5%. There was a second paper produced to full council, which identified the return of 4 to 5% would be an acceptable range to achieve. And the range which is actually being achieved is 2.64, as you've correctly identified in item, I think it's 10.1 and some other places as well, where we look at the figure. And clearly that is below that original target figure, but it is still a return on that investment. And in these times, that's a very positive outcome.
Okay, thank you for that.
So I'll refer you to 15.3, the bottom of page 25.
Yeah, that's fine. Councillor Medland.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering, is this including the interest that we pay on to the Public Works Board loan? Is that surely that's taken into account as well?
Yeah, the calculation flows from section 14 through to 15, showing both the gross and through the net. The gross was closer to 5. The various costs that come out of that, managing and covering the debt, etc. So at the end of the day, the 2.64 is a net figure.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Councillor Lilly.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions, really. The first one is, obviously, originally when this was set up under the previous administration, it was to have a criteria of 5% within that. Obviously, that hasn't fully been achieved. What is the present position? That's my first question. And then my second question that comes from that is there horizon visioning? Because when you do investments, you often look at actually cashing in. There's an opportunity where you could actually sell, especially with a tenant, onto a pension scheme, etc., which is a normal thing in this particular world. And then that frees you up to invest in something else, which you might get a higher return. It's a portfolio that moves. What is the horizon visioning of that? So what's the present situation and what does the future look like?
Yes, please, Councillor Jarman.
So the situation is we have that circa 35 million investment. It was part of an original approval of 100 million. The scheme is closed, so we're not looking at making further investments from that scheme because clearly it's no longer available. In terms of the strategy regarding that, the original idea when the administration came in May was to look at repositioning those investments onto the island and to use them as part of a regeneration strategy. Having had quite a lot of discussions with a number of people, including Chris Ward, of course, the situation with those loans is that were those investments to be liquidated, then the first call on the liquidated funds would be to repay the original loans upon which they were premised. So our idea of simply repositioning those loans by selling them and reinvesting the money locally is stymied. What we can do, of course, is to liquidate them at any time that proves to be rational. And that's a judgment issue. A number of people will obviously be involved in that. But we can, at the same time, and indeed are planning to do, is to look at ideas around borrowing to invest. And indeed, for any major issue of regeneration, there will need to be a significant, we anticipate, capital financing arrangement. And those will need to be brought forward on a case-by-case basis with a solid business case. And again, we've had some discussion with Chris Ward about that. And just anecdotally, quite a large sum might be available through that scheme, provided there is a robust business case to justify it.
Thank you.
Yes,
Councillor Lilly, yes, please do.
I think it's being a long-term server on the Scrutiny Committee of quite a long time. I do actually remember that when we looked at this in previous years, under previous administration, there was actually, and when we had a task and finish group that looked at housing, we did come up with a formula that actually investing in the actual council, investing in social housing on the island, not only provided housing for people in need, but actually got a 7% return. So it might be good to revisit that as a suggestion.
I entirely agree, and I'm very happy to defer at this point to my colleague, Councillor Stevens, who is sitting 2 steps to my right, engaged on that very activity.
Yes, Councillor Stevens, please come in and tell us all.
I'll tell you all, but I won't tell all. How's that? We'll keep things, we're not looking aspirationally at these things, we're looking at what we can achieve. Going back a while, I was taken to task over Camp Hill, which is a Ministry of Justice site. We are dealing with realities for our island people, and we are dealing with Isle of Wight Council land. And as we go through those brownfield sites, we'll also, in tandem, be looking at other areas and other sites that may not be council owned. But as we move forward, with the assistance of all the council and all members, I would expect us to start to focus on not mainland acquisitions, but looking at, quite rightly, Councillor Lilly has said, island homes, island people, keeping the island pound. If we're looking at investment and return on investment and looking at gross or net, I'll tell you what, if you start to do your figures on what you get for your pound in investment in an Isle of Wight house to be rented to our people, and looking at the council tax that brings it back, and looking at making sure that the family unit remains the family unit, as opposed to the strains and the stresses on the family, which once again have to be supported by, unfortunately, sometimes our social care agents, etc. We stand to gain significantly throughout the island and throughout our community. So yes, we'll be looking to go that way, and it'll be rented. We'll be looking at all tenure, but the accent and the direction will be mainly on the rented accommodation that we can. And already we've become a renter of accommodation, so that we can actually go and bid for Homes England funding, etc. We'll be coming to our council colleagues to say, okay, what are we going to do in the future? How can we support our aims and objectives? And as I said, this is not just the Alliance aims and objectives. This is about every elected member's aims and objectives, because we're all responsible for our people out there, and it's very hard times that people are going through. And as I say, homelessness is on the increase and unfortunately not on the decrease. I'm going to leave it at that, but we will be looking at council sites initially, so that we can actually, we've got something that we're assured of when we move into building houses for rent. Thank you.
Well, I think that's really good news, good to hear, frankly, because outside of social care issues, I think low price rental housing is a disaster waiting to happen, not just on the island, but particularly on the island, I think, but all over the country. So I think, yeah, I'm pleased to hear we're doing something about it, or looking to do something about it. Absolutely, yes, all together. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Councillor Lee.
I think it's important to pick up this point about the island pound. The Isle of Wight is the home to one of the biggest agencies on circular economy, which is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. It goes all over the world promoting the concept of circular economy, which is basically you use your pound. So we should be using any borrowing to invest in the island, because if we actually do that, then private investment will come in and other agencies come in. So having a real concept for the island pound, I think is important. On a small scale, this is what we're doing in RIDE. RIDE is actually borrowing, and then for every pound that RIDE puts in, we're getting about £3 from other investment in the town. So it works, and I think we need to celebrate Ellen MacArthur, Dame Ellen MacArthur, because she's been recognised for her work on the circular economy, and we should be using those expertise in the Ellen MacArthur things. And I put that as a proposition to the cabinet. We should be using we've got world economists, world experts on housing and everything, all based in Cowes at the Ellen MacArthur. And they are island residents, and we should be celebrating them and working with them.
Thank you for that, Councillor Lilly. I saw a signal there from our Chief Executive, John Metcalfe.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think just picking up on Councillor Lilly's point, I think I'd want to reinforce 2 points really. Under the terms of the Public Works Loans Board and now borrowing, the council's got to be very clear the purpose for which it is borrowing, and under very, very strict terms. So it has to be something for which the council has a power to do, and it also has to be able to get a return on its investment and to be able to pay the money back, and of course all the things that go with that. So we have to be very careful when we're making any borrowing decisions, as I'm sure our town council are, that we're able to stick within the terms of the Public Works Loans Board and any other borrowings that we may take, which are very strict, and the government are actually moving in the next few months to tighten those borrowing arrangements as well.
Thank you for that. Yes, of course. Yeah, checks and balances are important, but we still have to look at the right future prospects and what we need to be dealing with. Anybody else wish to comment? No. Okay, members, agenda item 6, budget proposals. I feel silence here. Probably the best thing we could do is look to Councillor Jarman, perhaps, to give us a bit of an overview, thoughts on the budget and what have you, and then take questions from members from there.
Well, first of all, to note that we are in the middle of a budget consultation exercise. The exercise is slightly different this year, I think, probably in some regards than it has been in previous years. This year we have reduced the number of questions which are in the forward part of the consultation, and written them and designed them in such a way that we hope that a much larger audience of islanders would be able to respond to those questions. Accepting some advice from the leader of the council, we have greatly reduced the number of numbers which are in those diagrams, They're no longer color coded as red, green, blue, green, and other different combinations. So it's a very simple exercise. It's really looking for weighted balance and emphasis where we have available funds, and looking at where the islanders see our guidance should be directed. There are some choices available to us in terms of the level of council tax which is set, and there are very few assumptions at this stage which are locked in stone. So the exercise is running. We are looking to receive as many contributions to that as we can, and the indication I've got so far is that we have a very large number of comments coming back, certainly more in the past. So that strategy seems to have paid off. We're also engaging in some consultation exercises with the community. We hosted just the other day the first online session, which was with the town and parishes around the island. The feedback from that seems to be very positive as well. People are very pleased to be actively engaged within the process, simply than being, assumed that if they want to bring something forward, they will. To actively be sought out is important. There will be another one of those coming up at the end of the month on the 20th. In the meanwhile, we have some other consultation exercises which are going on with individual town and parish groups and with commercial groups and businesses on the island. So we are very open to discussion. Today there's been a session planned with the radio where we will be talking about that consultation exercise again and trying to engage the widest possible audience.
Fabulous. Thank you very much for that. Also, thank you. I know this committee did put some questions together that were sent in your direction or any other cabinet members. I don't know who chipped in on that, but I assume most of it came from yourself. So we thank you for your answers on that. That's a really good thing to do to get a bit of grounding before we get to this meeting.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to take any questions on those if people want to inquire further. Although I would say that the exercise is running as a consultation at the moment. So, and given nothing is set in stone, some answers may be a little vague.
Yeah, that's fine. So, okay, so open it up to committee members. Councillor Paling.
Thank you. Just on that note, I want to, thank the administration for consulting with us and reaching out. For many of us, it feels like a fresh of breath air within the actually wanting to be sought out, like you said. We would like to know, what are the likely implications on town and parish councils? This includes the question Councillor Diana Conyers raised last week, which is how can we help, and what are the likely implications in terms of increased contribution to service delivery for town and parishes?
An excellent question. So that gives me a little bit of time to think there. The answer is that I think when I look back at the commentary I got back from town and parish councils at the very beginning of the administration, there were quite a lot of criticisms about feeling outside of the process. And at the end of the day, our town and parish councils are an invaluable asset that we have. They have a great deal of expertise. They have their own independent borrowing capability, and they have their ability to set precepts beyond which those within our constraint. They also have considerable assets which can be utilised on a local basis or perhaps on a joint basis. So for those and other fairly obvious reasons, it seemed very natural to include them in the process. Why on earth would anybody seek to exclude that combination of skills, expertise and resources from an exercise? Least of all, when we're faced with a very difficult financial situation as a council. So we wanted to have a very open door. And indeed, during that process and during the internal debates, I've extended that, I wouldn't say courtesy, because it's not really a courtesy, it is an opportunity to the unions, to the other groups within the council, and to be very open within that exercise about the challenges we face and the opportunities which are before us. I think we're also very determined that working together with town and parish councils, we can try and turn around this ship from a direction which was managing financial decline and cutting and reducing services, often characterised as savings, I know, but the bottom line is they were either cuts or service reductions in most cases. And we want to get to something which starts to rebuild the economy on the island. And we do that together.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Downer.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm certainly not a money person, but I'd just like to ask Councillor Jarman about debt repayment holidays. Now, I note here I've got a 9 million deficit, and the end of the debt repayment holiday is 3.9 million. When is that due? And if that's not paid back all at once, do the interest rates increase? Thank you.
So we have a variety of debt instruments within the council. We've got a list of them that we circulate not infrequently at the moment. Some of those, of course, are from the banking sector. Many are from the Public Works Loan Board, and others are shorter-term loan arrangements that we have. The shorter-term ones are more dynamic, obviously, that we have. We've looked specifically at those longer-term arrangements in terms of what the opportunity is to repay and cycle those. And in almost all the cases we've looked at, the cost of us truncating a large, long-standing loan is not an economic prospect that we can face at the moment. When we do a net present value calculation on those, and we look at what the short-term financial hit would be to us, they're uncomfortable figures. So it's an active process. We have a very good financial team who deal with it. We have a treasury management function who are closely involved, and I have the utmost confidence in them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Well, we're talking money, and clearly Chief Executive would like to come in and say something.
Thanks, Chairman. Also, just to add to what Councillor Jarman has said, the debt repayment holiday referred to by Councillor Downer, members may recall about 5 years ago, we did a complete recalculation of all our debt, and I'd anticipated we'd been overpaying for quite some time. So took a debt repayment holiday, which has allowed us to rebuild and sustain our finances. That holiday effectively comes to the end in March of this year. But what we had planned for is we'd actually planned for the end of that holiday. So there is no additional strain on the council's revenue budget as a result of that debt holiday coming to an end. And we factored in the fact that the debt repayments that we'll be making from 1st of April onwards. So it's gone. We've used it, but there's no additional strain on the revenue budget.
Thank you for that explanation. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Lilly.
Yes, before I put forward my questions and comments, I need to make declarations as often these things come up. Because I'm going to mention about the voluntary sector, I am chair, although I'm soon not to be, chair of the Isle of Wight Voluntary Sector Forum. And the other one is obviously I'm a councillor at Rye Town Council and Mayor of Ryde. So I talk.
Never too late to make a declaration.
Exactly. So my first question is about the voluntary sector, right? At budget times, obviously, savings have to, are going to have to be made within that. And obviously, I suppose the concern, I think, of all of us is obviously the most vulnerable on the island, and obviously during COVID, though the vulnerable have become more vulnerable, right, during that, and in fact we've had increased numbers of people becoming more vulnerable, and obviously in April people are going to hit with fuel bills and a whole lot of other things, so it's a very difficult time, and the voluntary sector is often the safety net, is a safety net on the ground supporting people. So what's the consultation with them, particularly on areas which could affect the most vulnerable? Because by communicating to the voluntary sector, and we have over 1,500 voluntary sector organisations of different sizes on this island who got us through COVID. We had that support at grassroots and also through the town and parish councils. So we need to really listen to them, and it was great news to hear, the communications with the town and parish councils. But are we communicating with the voluntary sector? And I'm keen to work with you that we do, because they might be able to have solutions to actually help us. And one of the things, the message I need to give from the voluntary sector is they get racked off when actually they come after it's too late. They prefer to be in the mix of that discussion within that. So that's my first question. The second one on assets, and you mentioned, about town and parish council assets. Well, the Isle of Wight Council's got some of the assets which need to go back to those town and parish councils. A lot of ride was given to the people by the owners of that land. Things like Apley Park were given to the people of Ryde, not Isle of Wight Council. So I think it's also a discussion about giving some of these assets back that could be more effectively and better managed by the people who actually they were given to in the first place. And my question is, what are we going to do about that as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lilly. And for the minutes, there was racked off is what it is. Thank you. Who wants to do it? Councillor Stevens here.
If you don't mind, Chair.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I'll start, and I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, because I'm going to say that in these trying times, if you're in business, you have an asset, do you give it away and then go out with a begging bowl and ask others to bail you out? Or do you utilise your assets and work in tandem with your town and parish councils to produce something that's better and take things forward? If you're in business, Chair, and you go out and give away part of your assets and then go elsewhere and say, I need help, which this local authority and every local authority throughout this land is going to need, then we have to have a balance here. And it's not a question of give me, because the town and parish councils are probably sometimes more level-headed than the Isle of Wight Council. And I see the strength in that. But what I will say is that we need to be assured that what we're doing is, and we're looking for growth. We're not looking for cuts over the next few years. We're looking to grow what the Isle of Wight Council does, grow income, etc., etc. We're not going to do that if we give away tranches of land, buildings, etc. But what we can do is we can talk and discuss and take things forward in the appropriate manner with, okay, there might well be a piece of land somewhere, and I'm going to give an example here, which town and parish councils see as see of value, but it's also, if they see it of value, then surely we should see it of value. And we should actually get this balance, because that's the only way that the community on this island are going to be able to take things forward and understand the situation. If we explain things rather than become the bottomless pit and hand things out, and I don't mean that in a derogatory manner. We have to be looking at what we're doing, how we're doing it, and making sense of it, so that the ordinary person, such as me, out in that street, can understand it and understand why does Ryde Town Council want to take on that expense. They're going to put their precept up, or any other town and parish council, they're going to put their precept up, and it's been given to them by the Isle of Wight Council. We're going to sit there and say thank you very much, and not profit from it. And I think there's a bit of, I'm not saying sell the land to town and parish council. What I'm saying is let's balance it out, let's talk. And thank goodness that we have town and parish council who want to talk to the Isle of Wight Council, who want to negotiate and take things forward. And those are the people that we should be dealing with. It's not the highway robbery sort of business and ride off on a horse with all the bags of goodies. It's actually okay. How are we going to do it, folks? How are we going to look after our communities, look after our assets, and look after the assets which we're custodians of? We don't own those assets, and Councillor Lilly's quite right. But what we can do is make sure that things work for the community, the town and parish councils, and indeed the Isle of Wight Council. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Well, you said you'd be controversial, and that raised some hands. So, first of all, I have Councillor Lilly, then Councillor Medal, and then Councillor Quirk.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stevens. And as you well know, actually, at your last cabinet meeting, you made a decision on Ryde Harbour, which actually is a very good example of working in partnership with Isle of Wight Council, because you were actually making a loss. Isle of Wight Council was making a loss on that harbour within it, and Ryde is actually taking it over, because now it is separated from the other harbours. It's actually now going to be in a profitable situation, and actually Ryde is investing nearly 400,000 into it to actually bring it up. So we have a model of actually working together with the town council, because years ago it was going to be sold off by the Isle of Wight Council to a dredging company, which would have been disastrous for Ryde. So actually you should be applauded for the decision at the last cabinet thing, because actually that is an example of that that asset being transferred to Isle of Wight Council, and actually borrowing money from the Public Loans Board, which wouldn't be available to Isle of Wight to actually get that to be a profitable income generation, but also increase the investment in the town for tourism and that kind of development will bring. So we do have some models there within that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Medland.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Michael. You've already made my point largely. I mean, I just want to come back to Councillor Stevens on this idea that these are assets. If we've had assets which we've had struggled to maintain for the last 10 years of adversity, they're really more like liabilities. They're costing us money to maintain. And I think it's a question of which organisation is most competent, has the deepest pockets. And as Councillor Jarman has said, the local town and parish councils do have deep pockets. They can borrow extensive amounts of capital, and they can raise revenue, and they can take over a great deal of the burdens that we are currently shouldering. So I think that it's a question of looking at the it's a case by case thing, I think, really. And I think this brings us back to the capability of local councils, and maybe we should be helping, we should be looking at how we can develop the actual competence of local councils to project manage major developments. I mean, I'll give you, Michael, Councillor has given us some examples, isn't it? I'll give you an example of the toilets in Freshwater Bay, for example. For years they were looked after by the Isle of Wight Council. They were expensive. They were very expensive, in fact, because they were losing vast amounts of water. But this got buried in the overall budget. When the budget was broken down and it came to Freshwater Parish Council, it became immediately apparent that there was a problem. And now they've borrowed the money, and they're going to rebuild the toilets and fix the problem of the huge amounts of water that are being wasted. So I mean, it's an example of where, but it's a lot of work for a parish council to do that, and they need resources. They need to be trained. They need to have staff. They're always struggling with the amount of work they already have, and it's a question of how can we help them become more competent in doing this kind of project management. That's my general rant. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Quirk.
I have to declare an interest as well, as I'm the Mayor of Shanklin. The town and parish councils are doing a lot already to help cover things that are the liabilities of the Isle of Wight Council. In terms of our principal parks and the cleaning of them and the planting of them, in terms of our beach cleaning, in terms of safety measures on the seafront in the bay. But there are issues where something like the Diamond Jubilee Memorial for Queen Victoria on the seafront is an absolute eyesite, right opposite a site that we're trying to sell, the spa site, that we're trying to actually get developers. And if you look out from the spa site, you have an absolutely awful thing of a collapsing memorial with fencing around it, because you have to have fencing around because bits fall off and could land on someone's head. Now, the town council in Shanklin has offered to sort of take that over and share the cost of actually putting it right. And that cost actually sits with the Isle of Wight Council. It's a listed building. You could actually be forced to put it right. But there are things like that that we could actually engage. Now, we've been engaging for the last year on this, and it's getting nowhere. And it sort of goes into an officer's filing cabinet and sits there for far too long. And I think there are quite a few things around the island where the same sort of thing applies. And there is a possibility to remove liabilities. And I think you should be looking at that.
Thank you. Yes, interesting. Oh, yes. Sorry, I'll come to you in a minute, Karen. Councillor Jarman.
The answer is yes. And I think all these are classic examples of how we can work with town and parish councils to improve the situation. I know that it's not been very good in the past. There's nothing I can do about that. All I can do is make every commitment that I will do whatever I can to make sure it's better in the future. And that's a very sincere undertaking. We've already started some examples of this. We did one recently in Knighton, for example, very quickly sorting out a situation there with a building that would be maintained by the local community and would serve a useful and practical purpose. We don't need to hang on to things which are forever liabilities. We need to be very sensible and organised about this and very much more business-like, and that's what we're intending to do. And everything that we can do in those partnerships that I spoke of earlier, we will do, and that will include making great haste to move these things through the process and procedures here that we know at times have been quite frustrating.
I know I'm quite new to this committee, but I just wanted, what I was doing, we were all talking about this, it seems to me we need some sort of like engagement strategy with town and parishes. Is there any move on having that so everybody knows how they can engage with each other?
Absolutely. Yes, Councillor John.
Well, I think what we did with the recent call with the town and parish councils was day one. That's probably the best way to look at it. You know, it's a new start, it's a new relationship, and I think we have an excellent person here in the person of, Councillor Cameron, who I hope is very much going to play a leading role in facilitating that engagement between us. I should come back to the issue of engagement with the voluntary sector, and at this point I do need to declare, given that Councillor Lilly has raised it, that I have a pecuniary interest as well in that I'm a fundraiser for 2 Principal Island voluntary sector charities and also for 2 council charities on the island and a trustee of others. But notwithstanding that, I'm very happy to add a discussion session with the voluntary sector, Councillor Lilly, if you would care to arrange that, as we are doing with many others during this budget consultation process. I think that would be very valuable for both sides.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Palin, and I do believe Councillor Stevens was trying to. Yeah, I'll just go to Councillor Palin.
I just wanted to quickly say something Councillor Lucioni said. Some members of IWAC do meet with cabinet members on particular issues, and we do have, quite good relationships there. There is over 20 town and parish councils as part of IWAC, so together we do often speak with the cabinet about potential issues, but also as a town and parish council in East Cowes, we've been quite successful in signing over 2 of the recreational grounds to us. So we found that if we approach the Isle of Wight Council, they're certainly they're here to listen to, and they often take on the advice that we say and listen to the local communities.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to go to Councillor Stevens and then I'll come to yourself, Councillor Julie Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I started out, I said it would be a little bit controversial. It's certainly not meant to be divisive. What it's meant to be is, okay, spot the situation, whether it's an asset or whether it's a millstone around our necks, address it in the most appropriate manner and move on. But we've got the opportunity, and we've had the opportunity in the past, and we've virtually rubbished it with town and parish councils, and indeed the voluntary sector at times, that we haven't given them a fair voice and standing in the discussions that we have with them. It's time to change. It's time to make sure that we discuss assets and liabilities with our town and parish councils. We've got to really, and with our voluntary sector, and we've got really to actually get a forum or two in place on a regular basis. You know, great, we're around the budget again, or the island plan. You know, that went round the island a few times, but we're waiting for an event to drive it. We should be driving it as the event of actually saying, look, we're going to do this. We're going to do the business with town and parish councils, whoever they are. We're going to give them the assistance that has been suggested, you know, and whether we can help IWOC and our town and parishes to beef up their back room so that they can deal with the property and leasing arrangements or whatever they're going to do. We should be there alongside them, not trying to lead the way or anything, but let's be alongside them and actually forge those relationships that will only make the power base of town and parish councils and Isle of Wight councils and our communities that much stronger. And as I say, I'm not out to take things away from town and parish councils any more than I am to thrust things into their hands. I'm there to say, let's have a balance, let's have a discussion. Let's make it better than it is at the moment, that has been in the past. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's good. Yes, cooperation and cohesion between two parties usually works.
Thank you.
Julie, come on.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to prolong this discussion anymore, but it is really, really important because you know, as Councillor Lee said earlier, you know, we've got the circular economy on the Isle of Wight, the island pound, but we're also completely unparished. Every single inch of this island has representatives on it, and that's a real strength. So I can only really sort of give an advert for IWOC here, because more members they have, the bigger the voice is, and those synergies can be found. And I just don't understand why you want to go off in different directions. Yes, every year, you know, I'm sure everyone looks at their budget lines. What can we do? What can we take out? And we consider it. But, you know, in Newport, we came out, I think, for 1 year, about 8 years ago. And we certainly understood the value of it. And it goes beyond what we pay as a community council. That's our strength. That's where you can make savings. I mean, I think through being members of IWOC, we actually managed to join in a contract for the hand washing facilities in our public toilets, which saved us money. So there's other elements going on there as well. So I would just heartily encourage every town and parish and council and community council on the Isle of Wight to join our IWOC, because together they have a very, very strong voice.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on. We will then move to agenda item 7, which is the big book. I quite like the size of this, purely because there's a shelf in my kitchen I couldn't reach, but I can now, thanks to this. I
actually say my dog nearly got killed when it came through the post box.
Oh dear. Right.
Survived it, but she is writing in the complaints.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. Lots of pampering. I think probably I'll go through the cabinet paper itself rather than our paper. Yes, does that make sense? So the first one on the list is name change, Fairway Athletic Track. I see an indication already, Councillor Palin.
Thank you. Greatly welcomes the more inclusive approach of the Alliance administration. However, the chairman of Lake Parish Council has expressed some concerns and disappointments that the parish council were not consulted with, nor were any conversations had about the proposed name change of the track, as it is situated within the ward of Lake North.
Thank you. Julie, you're coming in on that, yeah?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yes, it's under my remit, this paper. Obviously, there was been quite a lot of research and consultation has been done. It seems it's been done with Sandown Town Council. I wasn't privy to the actual consultation when it went out, just presuming that officers felt or thought it was in Sandown. I don't suppose Sandown Town Council said it wasn't within their town council boundaries. So I guess my question is, what do Lake think? Are they supportive of this? Because it's obviously, I think it's probably a non-controversial name change, which is reflecting the great work of someone who dedicated to sport in the area. So I can apologise if there has been an error on that. I say it wouldn't be one that's been done knowingly. Maybe just the difference between, there could be boundaries different between parish boundaries, could be different to to Isle of Wight council boundaries. So maybe it's something to do with that. I can't say. I don't know if Mr. Minns is on the call. We got any more information there? But I can only apologise. But really, would there be any different outcome? That's what I'd be interested in, if they've got any objections to this, I guess.
I have no idea. It's uncontroversial in Bryston, let's put it that way. Right, so I'll come to Chief Executive in a second. Just going to go to Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It may be in the grand scheme of things a more minor issue, but perhaps it does focus minds that consultation goes beyond talking about consultation, and that it's easier sometimes to say than do. But I'm sure that your apology on that, Councillor Jones-Evans, would be appreciated, not that I am on Lake Town Council or live anywhere near it.
Thank you. Yes, well, I think that'll be noted in our minutes, of course, and passed on accordingly. John Metcalfe.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. And again, apologies if we have missed that out. This was obviously an approach from the athletics club and lots of people and friends of Ray and family who've known him for many, many years, and the input that he's put into athletics and getting young people back into sport. And I think this is a really, really good proposition. I will make sure that if the clerk or the chairman of Lake is contacted before the report comes before Cabinet on Thursday.
Thank you for that. That would be good. It certainly sounds like a good thing from my perspective, but yeah, they're good to have that contact back with them. Any other comments or questions on this matter? Oh, okie dokie. Newport Harbour supplementary planning document. Members, questions? Councillor Quirk.
When we had the original consultation on this, there were sort of three options, sort of some housing, a lot of housing, or no housing. And we seem to have gone from that to a lot of housing or some housing. And we seem to have slipped back in the development on the park site. That seems to have sort of slipped back in, that was all previously agreed that wouldn't go ahead. I suppose you can do that if you're going to do a consultation, but I hope it will be a proper consultation and allow people to make the same comments that they made last time that led to the decision to take out the building on the park.
Chair, do you want me to respond
please,
to that? Yes,
please,
I don't think it's a joint paper between Councillor Fuller and myself, but I'm happy to take it as I'm in the room, if that's all right. I think the slight change of emphasis here, as you've rightly pointed out, is probably due to the fact of the pandemic we've just been through and the housing crisis we are now in. So we're in a different place to when the consultation was done. Of course, the consultation that was done regarding that housing on the front of Fairlea, on the front of the park, was done sort of separately from the Isle of Wight Council's consultation. It was more of a public awareness campaign by the local member at that time, if you recall, and then it was taken out by the then cabinet before it went to the cabinet decision for the master plan to be adopted as a document. So what we're looking at now is just opening that door again, just doing a health check and a very wide public consultation. So we do welcome all sorts of views. If you recall, going back 4 years ago, there was originally a proposition for housing going down the side of the park facing the cemetery with like terrace of housing there with gardens there as well. That very clearly came out from the public consultation that there was no support for that. However, some housing on the front, that was not the same answer we got back from the public at that time. So that's why it went forward at that point, and then so the local member then didn't like that and then had a local campaign. So if you follow my line here. So we've just opened that door ajar. I just wanted to have a sense check of where we are right now. It is a consultation. It's a document really just a move into the consultation. It's important that we hear the voices from everybody, not just the people in Newport. And we certainly heard some comments last night at Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council. And we just want to hear back. It's important we have a supplementary planning document because then it gives the confidence then for investors to come forward and look at the whole of the plan. Don't forget, you're looking at the whole of the master plan here, and you're rightly picking up on this section because that's probably the thing that's probably mostly changed since the last time went to cabinet. Is that okay, Councillor Quirk?
Yes, thank you for that. Councillor Quirk would like a supplementary. I'll just quick comment from myself that if you open that door ajar, the local member will certainly walk through it.
He already has. I mean, as you would be, aware from me that I know the local member very well. In fact, he's my councillor. So we do work. I mean, I've known him for many years since we were much younger. I have to say, I had red hair. But in a spirit of open transparency and true consultation, I spoke to the local member before the publication of this paper, so he was well aware. And also arranged a phone call with our director of regeneration as well. So he's well aware, and which is great because I knew it would be a difficult thing to.
Okay, thank you for that. A supplementary from Councillor Quirk, and then I believe
supplementary observation that the cynic might say that it's been put in because that's the easy site to develop, the one that's most likely to be attractive to developers and an easy start to the scheme, rather than what we actually need.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's not actually an easy site because you're looking at there's the possibility of the brownfield site coming forward on that area as well. I think what's been shown during the pandemic and looking at our housing needs is the needs for family homes with gardens, and that's the only site within the whole of the master plan area where that could happen. So, but it's just a consultation. If the voice comes back loud and clear, then we have to look at that seriously again. But it's, I've got my own personal feelings, but this doesn't really come into it at the minute because it's up for the public to say what they feel about this.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Robertson.
Hey, thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify with the cabinet member that no housing on greenfield will be an option in the consultation, and a meaningful option?
It's one of the options. I think you'll see. I'll come up what page it is. 47 it might be. It's on there. It's ringed out on the left hand side of the paper. You can see there's 3 options there.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anybody else on that one? No. Okay. School funding formula and budget setting. Hello, Councillor Andre. Members, any questions, thoughts, comments? Time for a coffee. Absolutely. Okay, moving on, we have supporting UNESCO Biosphere. Interesting stuff. Comments, questions, members? Councillor Lilly.
Obviously take the opportunity to one, I think, congratulate the cabinet member and the staff team who've worked I think, tirelessly over the years to within this. I know you as chair had some involvement, and I think it's important to highlight that there's been a sort of environmental forum and working with a range of agencies across the island in this. So this is a bit of the jewel in the crown with this. So definitely support this and working forward. I've just got one or two questions that if I can ask. The first one is about the steering group. It very clearly says about the, having a biosphere steering group. And I just wanted to ask about the makeup and membership of that steering group, that obviously things like town and parish councils and a range of other, key stakeholders within this are actually involved in that steering group. And it's not just an Isle of Wight Council steering group, but it's actually actively working with other stakeholders within that. That's my first question. Our second question is, how do we integrate this, the biosphere, within all parts of the council, and how do we educate, particularly around planning, that this is, taken on board? Because at the moment the biosphere isn't necessarily material consideration within planning applications, and most of the planning applications that are coming forward, you could say, quite a few are counteracting a lot to do with the biosphere, and are not necessarily taking on board climate change and things. Some of the applications and the building of housing, have they got electric charge points, which is another item, but it's related? Have they got solar? The Isle of Wight has the most sun, not today, but most sun reportedly in the UK. So we should be solar energy capital, really. So, I haven't seen many applications that have got solar panels on the roof and within that. And actually, mentioning no names, there's a very large development that's near me and Rye that's still, has got planning permission outlined, but is coming forward. And they're talking about fitting gas central heating in about 900 houses, which is on the Pennyfeathers estate.
Okay, Councillor Lilly, thank you. I think
within that, I just
so just do first two. What's your third?
Can I just sort of state, how do we get over so that future developments on this island are actually balanced with the biosphere and climate change? Thank you.
Councillor Bacon, did you get those questions?
I did.
Thank you.
Firstly, I would like to support and underline Michael's thanks to the staff who have worked on this, because this is a lot of work that's been done in a fairly short space of time, but because it's important. And I think that those thanks should also be extended to the AONB team, the officers there who, through their hard work, actually got this this badge of honour, if we call it that, in the first place, which we need to make the absolute most of it we can. It is, I know a lot of people say, well, where's the money? Where's the extra powers? But what it is, as I've often said, is a massive potential and a massive opportunity. And I hope that is now being realised. I would, just before I come specifically to answer Councillor Lilly's questions, say that for those who are struggling with a very big bundle of papers, the absolute key to understanding where we are and where we're hoping to head with the biosphere can be found actually in the appendix document to the Cabinet paper, which is called Supporting the Isle of Wight UNESCO Biosphere. It's in your cabinet bundle, I think pages 175 to 189. So that it tries to encapsulate really an understanding of where we've come from, what we've got, what potentially could happen, and how we're going to make that happen. And I will refer to that in a moment in answering the questions. I would actually specifically point to the little diagram, where is it, on which is page 10 of the supporting document, page 184 of the cabinet bundle, which tries to show that process of integration, but also the role of the Biosphere Steering Committee in that. The membership is very important. Councillor Lilly is absolutely right. This is not an Isle of Wight Council committee. It's bigger than that. It's more important than that. Certainly there will be officers from the Isle of Wight Council on that committee, those who, I won't name names at the moment because obviously we have to determine the membership, but to say those who are responsible for coast, for heritage, and so on, that's all part of it. Those are some persons responsible for well-being. These are all parts of what we have on the island that makes up the biosphere. And I was quite adamant that to make sure this is properly given the status it deserves, this is not something that's going to be chaired by an Isle of Wight council. It's something to be independently chaired to give it the lead and independent direction it needs to work. So the membership is to be determined, but it is going to be the right people who can give the right lead on those areas. But it is a wide range of issues that will feed into that committee, but I don't want to make it too large. It's got to be workable as well. In terms of integration, it's not just integrating into the council, it's integrating into the whole island. Although it must be said that what the Biosphere Mark does is, it is actually a recognition that we have a lot of good stuff on the island, and a lot of stuff that can work to the benefit of our residents, businesses, and indeed visitors. But it's how we take that forward and make the most of that. And integrating it, as you say, into decision-making and understanding and forward work is key. In terms of the council, we have a short, in the section called Embedding the Strategy into the working of the planning of the council, starting at it's page 11 of the document, page 185. That, I think, gives you a little extra guidance. I won't read through all that, but there is an action plan at the end of that section, and I'd refer you perhaps to page 188 in the bundle. And I will quote this bit because I think it helps the understanding. There will be a review of the UN Sustainable Development Aims and a guidance document for directors setting out the aims with regard to the biosphere so that directorates can indicate which and where the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are supported. That is a key action plan. That one possibly is the closest to what you asked, Michael, but you'll see if you read through that short action plan, it's only a page, those are immediate actions to be followed to get the committee set up and to make sure that in the planning for all directorates in the council, the importance and understanding and how the biosphere to be taken forward is there. And the same applies to climate change as well. You'll note in the diagram I referred to earlier that the committee will sit alongside, or maybe amalgamate is going too far, but it will be very much alongside the Climate Change Mission Zero Hub that is under development. The two things do sit both in positions of importance and they are complementary. So it's been deemed that they will work well together and we don't want to create two committees when one can do the same work. And I do recognise that the recent task and finish group on the island plan, to come, I think, to your last point, recognise the importance of the biosphere in the island plan. There is mention of it in the draft that is circulated. The task and finish group said there should be more, and I agree wholeheartedly with them. In the island plan, as indeed elsewhere, the biosphere must be fundamentally integrated to the thinking and operation of planning and so much more. So the simple answer is, will it be integrated? Yes, we will just get on with it. We'll do it. If we see it's not there, well, hopefully the Directorate Planning will make sure that that picks that up and puts it there. And I do hope that when we get the final iteration of the island plan in due course, we will see the biosphere. It was strong in there before, but I hope it will be strengthened again, because if we follow those principles and ideas and drives that are set out in the 17 sustainable goals, which are printed a couple of times throughout the papers, that will be key to taking this island forward.
Thank you. Can I ask just a supplementary question?
Yes, please do, Michael.
I would like to ask a question just on a particular thing, that there are things which I suppose are anomalies on the island that we need to that. And I bring up Cowes Power Station, which is an oil-filled sort of last resort power station that we need to import oil to actually function within that. It is within your portfolio, as it were, tackling some of the old elephants like Cowes Power Station that need to resolve if we wish to achieve our full heritage of UNESCO biosphere.
Well, do remember that obviously the biosphere has been awarded. There's a pragmatism perhaps in it. You know, you can't be perfect, and I don't think any biosphere around the world of the 717 there are would say they haven't got bits that someone might point at and say, well, that's not so good. What the accreditation reckons is that the overall balance is positive and the mechanisms are there to take things forward in a sustainable way. I think your question possibly relates more to the climate change strategy and the target for the island to be carbon neutral by 2040, and that facility and others that may be in a similar bracket to it will be part of what is addressed in that process. But that will be tied in with the biosphere, because as I say, there's that close link with the Mission Zero Hub. But I think that's possibly the mechanism. Not the mechanism, but the policy that will look towards that particular facility and others like it.
Thank you.
I'll make a proposal when everybody else has spoken.
Okay, yeah, Karen wants to come here, so.
Wait to the end. But I just wanted to, so I've learned a lot from this, so thank you to everybody that's had input on this. But I just wanted to point out there's actually more area in the marine environment than there is on land. So are we making sure people like Southern Water, Environmental Agency are all going to be involved in this, because it's very important what's going on there.
Thank you.
I didn't quite catch what you said about marine and land, that phrase. Sorry.
There's more area in the marine environment than there is on land, according to this.
Yeah, the short answer, yes. I mean, if you look at the map of the biosphere accreditation, it's on page 178, page 4 of the supporting document. You will see the three elements of the biosphere: the core areas, the buffer zones, and the transition zones set out, and you will see that an awful lot of the wet stuff is covered. And so, short answer to your question, yes. It is all part of the biosphere and the sustainable future of the island and our environment.
my question was on the working party, etc. To do this, what we talked about earlier, will people like Southern Water Environmental Agency be part of that so that we can put focus onto it?
I'm not going to say that a particular agency will be represented. I suppose in the same way that the AONB represents a number of areas such as rural economy, tourism, and so on. We're looking to make sure that those areas are represented, not that specific organisations are represented, but in terms of water quality, sustaining our sea life, and so on, the committee must obviously include membership from whatever source it might be that can appropriately support and address those issues.
So will we be bringing Southern Water back in at any point to make sure they're doing progress? I see they're doing works in Sandown.
Yeah, I think the Southern Water matter, I mean, we've invited them here before, haven't we? Our MP is on their toes all the time. They have stated that they will make us a priority. Well, let's hold their feet to the fire on that. And this is an ongoing thing, isn't it? We know what needs to happen. We need to hold them to account. So we'll see how we go. Yeah, why not? Yeah, absolutely. Right, I've got Chief Exec wants to just come in briefly. Then I'm going to go to Councillor Robertson and then Councillor Andre.
So, sorry, Chairman, just a point of clarification. I think there was a question about membership of the steering group, and that's set out on page 9 of the appendix for members who want some more detail on that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Comment really. I mean, I think it's very encouraging and exciting, the work that's been done on the biosphere. But really to tie into what Councillor Lilly and Councillor Lucioni have said, I think unless the public see that translate into meaningful planning policy that reflects the aims and the status of a biosphere, and unless they see that translate into improved water quality and fewer, ideally no discharges from Southern Water into the sea, they will become increasingly disappointed in what should be an exciting thing. So I think we need to make sure that it translates into meaningful policy and delivery in all areas that it touches. Thank you.
Thank you, and I agree.
And so do I, Chair. That is what the diagram on page 184 aims to show, that a key part of this is awareness and education, so that things such as you refer to are addressed and dealt with. Anything that's deemed substandard could affect one's perception of the biosphere, the climate change strategy, and so on. So we just need to create the strongest possible tools, and part of that is education and understanding of what it is, what it means, and what it can do to ensure that those sort of things can be addressed. And hopefully in the long-term future simply don't arise.
Thank you. I'll come to you in a minute, Councillor Andre. I'm just going to go back to Councillor Lilly, who wants to jump in.
I wanted to put forward a proposal which was to support, for this committee to support the biosphere. The wording, the recommendation be supported, and the committee will monitor the delivery of actions associated with this matter. I'll look for a seconder.
Hey, hold that thought. I'm just going to go to Councillor Andre and then we'll look for a seconder.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add, in response to Councillor Lucioni, as I'm sure she's aware, there are marine conservation zones. There's one in Sandown Bay, and obviously this does actually very much strengthen our biosphere strategies. In response to Councillor Lilly, in terms of working across the whole council, across all of our portfolios, I'd like to say that I have already worked with Councillor Bacon and his team to promote the Eco Schools project. It's vitally important that we actually educate our young people in terms of the biosphere and looking after our beautiful island. It's very much about bringing education to the fore in that. The Eco Schools project actually operates on 7 pillars, which actually lead to awards for the school, and it's very much in accordance with our biosphere principles, and that work has already taken place, and we are promoting that throughout the schools so that our young people coming through will already be very much of that mind, that the biosphere will be paramount in their education. So thank you.
And if Chair, I could add, just looking at the sustainable goals, of course, numbers, I couldn't remember the numbers earlier, which is why I held back, but numbers 6 and 14 are specific to, Councillor Luciani, what you say, clean water and sanitation and life below water. And I would utterly support what Councillor Andre says about the importance of young people. We're just looking after this place for them. We're all temporary residents, and they've got to put up with what we do. So let's try and do something good for them. The young people and education understanding are going to be key. I think they're a hell of a lot more receptive than a lot of people of our age, my age, should I say, not trying to be offensive. But of course, I mean, that process started back in 2019, shortly after the award of biosphere status, when the whole Mardi Gras that year was based around the biosphere. It's a shame that the impetus was lost a little with the pandemic, as with so many things. But the eco schools thing is fantastic, and anything like that flashes of inspiration, ideas like that, whether they're new or pinched from somewhere else, it doesn't matter. If they work to increase the understanding and appreciation of what we've got and how we can make it work for the future, our futures and our young people's futures, then great.
Absolutely, thank you for that. Yeah, Rob, before we just go for that second, I'm just going to add my voice to just to say how much I appreciate and thank the Cabinet member and the officers for this report. And I was very pleased to see this when it came forward, and I couldn't wait to read it. And I was very pleased that there was an action plan, because a report without an action plan is a piece of paper. Thank you very much, all, one and all. Right, so Councillor Lilly, you have proposed. Councillor Medland.
Yeah, I'd like to support the motion that Councillor Lilly has made, and also I'd also like to thank you, Chair, for your role in this. You were actually very important in leading this process for 4 years. Thank you.
Well, many thanks for that, Councillor Medland. And now we move on. Yes, a recommendation from Councillor Lilly. Have you? Yeah, is it? Yeah, and seconded by Councillor Medland. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move.
Chair,
Who's
may I just indulge with 1 second?
Yes, hello,
I just have an
Councillor.
update regarding my paper on the Fairway athletic track, and the map's been sent to me, and it's right on the border of Lake North and Sandown. So Lake will be contacted first thing in the morning by the officer. Just a pure error.
These are the excuses coming out now. No, sorry. Yes.
Well, I just want to say that we've double checked as we speak, and we're taking action first thing in the morning.
Sometimes things get overlooked, but as long as they're corrected, that's fine by me.
Yeah, I have to remind Sandown that it's not in their vicinity as well.
Thank you for that. Members, we must now move on. We're moving on to deployment of electric vehicle charge points in council car parks. Oh, yes, please. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah.
Just to note, it went through my committee last Thursday, and we were all supportive of that. So I'd say the motion to accept that and move forward.
Fabulous. I've got Councillor Quirk in my peripheral.
I'll say the same as I said at the other meeting of the Policy and Scrutiny Committee. The big aversion to electric cars is people being worried about the availability of places to recharge them. And in order to drive that forward, we need to be ahead of the curve, not behind the curve, in terms of having places that you know you will be able to park and charge an electric car on the island, and particularly for visitors. A lot of the existing charging points, I know of 4 in Shanklin, but they are in behind gated areas. So they're available for visitors to hotels, but they're not available to the general public. And we need to have charging points that are available to the general public and encourage them. So rather than it being, keeping the numbers down, we should be keeping the head of what the requirement is, so that we encourage people to actually go in that direction.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Councillor Palin.
Thank you. Myself and I were delighted to see the further rollout of the EV charging points across the island. However, we feel it is vital that town and parishes are consulted when it comes to them being placed on their highway. Obviously, I note that these aren't, but into relation to the first rollout of them, town and parishes weren't actually consulted with just before those went in. They'd happened several years before, and a lot of things have obviously had changed since then. For example, one was placed on a narrow pavement, stopping a double pram not being able to get there down there now in Ventnor, and also in East Cowes, one was placed on a particularly busy road which already has a parking issue. So will the council, the administration, consult with town and parish councils if they go for a future phase of the rollout, putting them on the streets again? And also, will the administration take into account the effect this has on street clutter for our communities, and instead focus on installing them on the highways rather than the pavement if there is a future phase? Thank you.
Thank you for that. Does anybody want to jump in and give an answer to that? Councillor Jarman.
Yes, not to answer it, but just to add to it, really. I'd also like to recommend to people the opportunity to use the EV point sharing app. So I know that we've got several residents now in Totland who have EV points on their drive while they're away during the day. Those points are made available through the sharing app, and other people who come in to actually work in one of the shops in Freshwater are able to use that driveway to park on, which means they're not on the road, which is a good thing, and to share the use of that EV point for charging, which is another good thing. So I think there are ways that we can promote activity which is very rational and very economic and serves us as an island very well. So just to add that really to what Councillor Palin was saying. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else? Councillor Bacon.
So we've just been having a bit of chat in the back row, actually, and with Brian Pope from Children's Services. So this is an idea, and I just think it's brilliant and should be thrown into the mix for consideration. Why don't we have some charging points placed on school premises where we have that control? If we're encouraging our council-related employees to use electrical vehicles and make that easier, that adds to the whole process of taking this forward, and also relates to our climate change target to make our school estate carbon neutral by 2035. So I'm blaming you for it, Brian, but it was a brilliant idea, which he said he thought of 2 minutes ago, but I think it's genius.
Okay, yeah, that's
So
entirely sensible.
Like make that public, frankly.
That's entirely sensible, I think. And now we have Councillor Jordan, I do believe, virtually.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me. If you can, just to say that there's obviously that's a great idea. Why not? But that you be mindful that a charging point is in the order of without grant funding £8,000 to £10,000 per charger. We've been fortunate to achieve some grant funding for the 10 on-road charging points. And we are fortunate to receive funding for the potential car parking charging points. And the commercial sector is moving in and approaching us quite heavily and constantly to deliver commercial charging points and stations. Yeah, absolutely. We have to build the infrastructure that's required on the island. Commercially and directly from us. So that's our proposals coming later for delivering some of that infrastructure. Just to finally say, I mentioned it before, there's a thing called ZAP map, which shows all the existing island, well, across the country, in fact, but from our perspective, charging points on the island, and there are about 45 to 50 on the island already. Not all accessible by the public, I accept, but a good many are. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Anybody else? No, no more on that. Okay, thank you. Oh, I hesitate to say we move on to the floating bridge. Councillor Palin.
Thank you, Chair. The Cabinet Office Gateway 5 review states that the floating bridge was potentially poor designed and, I quote, has several apparent design inadequacies. This is something both the East Cowes Town Council and Cowes Town Council have been saying since 2017. I'm pleased to see the Alliance administration not rule out getting a new floating bridge, unlike the previous. But can I therefore ask the Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure, are we still on track for a decision to be made in March about whether to either appoint an independent organisation to design a new floating bridge or to appoint an independent organisation to manage the necessary improvement works?
Thank you. Councillor Jordan, did you hear the question?
I did. Thank you,
Excellent.
Chair. And just to thank you for that, and just to confirm that we are on track to undertake the recommendations contained in the review in the report, which involves a number of actions, and these will be and are being implemented in the coming months. And we continue to maintain all options open to us to deliver the outcomes that are required of us under the SLEP funding agreement. I can also confirm that no mediation or court case dates were in place when this administration, the current administration, took office in May 21. Since then, we've pushed very hard to get all parties to the table, and that's now been agreed for March the 2nd. When mediation will take place on that date in London. But I want to make it I want to make it absolutely clear, Chair, that if on that date we are unable to achieve a fair and acceptable settlement, we will not hesitate to instigate legal proceedings without any further delay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, and I'm pleased to hear that final comment. Councillor Robertson.
Chair, thank you. Is the Cabinet Member for Transport saying the Isle of Wight Council will only attend one session of mediation? Is that what he's saying to this committee?
No, where did I've never suggested that. I've merely told you that we have pushed for a mediation date, which is now going to take place certainly a year later than was ever foreseen on the 2nd of March. Of course, we can't say that will only be the only mediation.
Thank you for clarifying. It sounded like you said on the 2nd of March, if there is no outcome, you'll commence with legal proceedings, but thank you for clarifying. My supplementary question is the Cabinet Member, is the Isle of Wight Council saying they may take a decision in March on whether to commission a new bridge or make substantial repairs to the existing bridge, notwithstanding mediation could be ongoing for some time?
We're not saying either of those things and will not say those things in this meeting in public with a mediation process upcoming.
Well, Councillor Palin's question was, would you make a decision in March? So I assume, therefore, that's a not necessarily.
How wonderful that during the last administration that took 4 years to even get this thing to a mediation process, to even convene the independent review, which it failed to do, with an upcoming legal process that it hid behind for most of the 4 years, that it couldn't comment, that you now want me to comment. I am not commenting on what we are prepared to do until the mediation case is over. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's very clear, Councillor Jordan.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? Shall we leave the floating bridge behind for now? Okay, moving on. We now go to item 9. We've got Hackney and private hire licensing policy, including relevance of convictions policy. I'm sure you've all read it, digested it, got excited about it, and there'll be a question or two, I'm sure. Or not. Move on from that one, shall we? I had read it and I thought it was quite interesting, but very normal. No, it's all very normal, as should be, etc. All acceptable. Yeah. Okay. Street trading policy. Any comments, questions, thoughts? Anybody wish to street trade? Councillor Jones-Evans, probably. Oh yes, Councillor Lilly.
Can I just say on both the Hackney and the street trading policies to thank the Cabinet member and thank the Isle of Wight Council team to update policies which were clearly out of date. So I wish to actually put that thanks that we've come a little bit advanced in the years in our policies. Thank you.
Yes, precisely. I think they needed updating and they have been, so that's a good thing. Development of relocatable homes. Now that's an interesting one. Councillor Paley.
I just wanted to say that iWork will continue to show support for this, and we do look forward to hearing the future plans from Councillor Stevens to address the housing crisis, to which Councillor Jarman referred to on the briefing on Thursday evening in consultation with town and parish councils regarding the budget. And town and parish councils would be happy to work in partnership with the Isle of Wight Council if the appropriate means can be found. iWork continues to have a keen debate around ways to addressing the housing crisis, and we look forward to working with the administration.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stevens.
Welcome that, Councillor Palin. I think that we need to work together. This is exactly where I was coming from earlier in the meeting. And perhaps we can talk outside the meeting, and indeed Diana Conyers would be most welcoming on those kind of discussions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and Councillor Quirk.
Totally support the concept. We need a lot more affordable homes, and that's both affordable homes to rent and affordable homes to buy. The one thing I would say is the statement was made earlier that we're not acting aspirationally. I think we need to think about acting aspirationally, because we really do need to have a big increase in the delivery of affordable homes on the island, and I think that's something that we should aspire to.
Absolutely. Councillor Lilly.
Thank you. Chair, totally support this, and I think we need to, perhaps as a committee, I might put forward a proposal to highlight the support for this, because this is, I think, within all the Cabinet, it's a very important issue, but this is extremely important because we are in a housing crisis on this island, and particularly over the last 2 years, the level of private rented accommodation has reduced I can't even say the word, but disastrously, right? It's literally, if you had a graph, it would be going down a very steep curve.
Costs going up.
And we have now actually got residents who have been okay, right? Who's suddenly coming into the homelessness sector that have never ever been in this direction, and families. And I'm sure as ward councillors we all have examples of cases, an increased level of cases of people coming forward needing housing. So one of the two things is one is a commitment to actually start tackling that, and we've got to see how an increase in houses in the year. And I would hope the Scrutiny Committee keeps this subject and regularly comes back to it to see the progress, because I think it's important, and that includes also Councillor Luciani's committee.
Lucioni.
Luciani's. I know, so I apologise. The policy and scrutiny of neighbourhoods as well, because we do need to keep track of this. The other particular thing I want to highlight is innovation, because some years ago I was part of a task and finish group. I think Councillor Julian as well, Councillor Deborah Andre, I know Councillor Quirk was, where we actually looked at around the country different innovation on housing. We did actually look at an idea of maisonettes with flats at the bottom, where young families who were coming in, you know, couldn't get a mortgage because they didn't earn enough, but actually you could use the income from a flat and work with a housing association. So you could actually get people onto the housing market at the same time having a housing association rent a flat out for them, which actually, you know, got help to two for the price of one. And I think looking at this kind of modular housing and everything is also looking at taking from other parts of the country who've successfully done this to actually get this in the next 12 months of that, because there's some real initiatives. And it also, there are different kinds of lenders, green lenders. There's a huge amount like Triodos Bank that has wanted to come onto the island many times, bring the green pound into developing housing initiatives. So I urge you, be more creative and more imaginative in actually getting imaginative solutions to that. And modular housing is not a quick fix. It's actually a practical, time-effective fix. And I think we need to get this in the next 12 months off the ground.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stevens.
Just come back briefly, Chairman. You're quite right. You're quite right to say there's more than one way to crack a nut or get some solutions. And initially, when I was talking earlier, I was saying that this is an island-wide problem. Each council member is hit by the same problems, people contacting them in desperation. We're not the first port of call for people in trouble. We're probably the last port of call. No one wants to contact their councillor and say all their problems. So we're generally the last port of call. We're the last link in that chain. And at this moment in time, it's going to be a big, big challenge to try and meet what we've got coming at us. So what I'm going to say is that you've come up, Councillor Lilly, with a couple of ideas and ways forward that are being dealt with elsewhere. I've said, okay, we're all in this together. Well, come forward. Councillor Ward has come forward with a suggestion. Other councillors have done the same. As I said, this is not party politics with our people. This is downright necessity. The Alliance group, the administration, minority administration, has seen that we've got this big problem and have grasped the nettle. But that doesn't mean to say that we're going to grasp the nettle and run with it for the next three or 4 years whilst everyone snipes at us. I want everyone to come together on this, because it's not going to go away. Councillor Lilly mentioned the graph and the steep drop. It's not stopping there, unfortunately, it's continuing. It's not going to stop in March or anything like that. And in actual fact, it might continue even at an even more fast pace, because quite honestly, we've got the holiday season coming around, and we know what happens when holiday season comes around. The holiday letting goes up, etc. And these aren't people that are desperate because they haven't got a job, etc., etc. Although we have those, we have people in full-time employment who are looking to find a roof over their head. And that's why we, the Isle of Wight Council membership, and including the town and parishes, this is where we're going to work together. This is the opportunity that we've got, because town and parish councils know their areas, they know what we've got. I don't want to build a 300, 400 unit housing estate. I'd like to build 3 or 4 units on a street corner somewhere, not taking over hamlets and villages. We have to look at what we've got. And this is why I said about Isle of Wight Council land. We might have a parcel land, scrubland, that is a pain in the back of the neck. But we might be able to utilise that for some of our housing. We might be able to. And when we're talking about a year's time, let's talk about trying to bring forward a fast track housing route, a framework that we can actually say, okay, yes, we've got this, we've got that, okay, let's put it forward. Let's get it through planning. Let's get things on orders. Let's start to work with local builders. Whatever we need to do, whatever it takes. These are desperate times for people out there, and really, it needs not just an aspiration, but it needs commitment and fulfilment. And I invite you on that journey with me. It's not going to be an easy one, but please think about it and commit yourselves to it, because we've got some damn good officers in place. We've got some opportunity. We've got a commitment to our community out there. But if we work together, I feel sure that we'll start to make inroads into the problems we've got today on the Isle of Wight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Councillor Lilly, you wanted to come back.
I've got a proposal.
Huh? Councillor Lucioni, sorry about that.
I just want to, obviously this is going to go through to my committee, which I welcome and look forward to monitoring their progress. But I absolutely recommend that, the recommendation to support this, absolutely do support it.
Thank you. Permission to talk, Councillor Lilly.
I wish to propose the recommendation be supported, and that the Policy and Scrutiny Committee for Neighbourhoods and Regeneration be requested to monitor progress, and requests that the Policy and Scrutiny Committee for Neighbourhoods and Regeneration be asked to establish a task and finish group on affordable social housing innovation. I did ask my colleague.
We'll have to look at obviously capacity, etc. But I've not, we can ask.
Yeah. So that's my proposal.
Thank you for that. And seconded by Councillor Quirk. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, members. We're going on to amendments to covert surveillance policy.
I am 65 this year.
No. Right. You know nothing. You see nothing, you hear nothing. Anybody got any questions about surveillance? No? We'll put it on social media. Okay. That concludes the Cabinet papers, I do believe. Questions on the forward plan? Any thoughts on the forward plan? Nope. No, nothing jumping out. Everyone's happy with the forward plan.
We should probably have a forward plan after we've got the settlement of the, where we're going with the.
Do you want to say, put your mic on and?
Well, once we need to have some flexibility, but once the negotiations about the floating bridge have completed, we should be looking at how that's gone and revisiting the floating bridge, I would have thought.
Okay.
But I think you have to be sort of flexible about when that happens, because I don't think it will all happen on one day.
No, well, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Councillor Lilly.
I just wanted to highlight something on the forward plan and perhaps whether suggest it could be brought as a particular agenda item, because I think it's very relevant, and that's the Armed Forces Covenant. I'm putting my hat as the Isle of Wight Council mental health champion on here. We have over 10,000 veterans on this island, and if you put that against that, that's a significant number. And the covenant is extremely important, and particularly through COVID and that, those veterans have had a tough time, and definitely is one of the areas that I know the Armed Forces sort of Covenant Council lead member, which is Councillor Ian Daw, who's a veteran himself. And I know, for instance, Councillor Ian Ward in the past, who's had that role, is very passionate about this as well. And I definitely, as the Isle of Wight Mental Health Champion, are championing and making sure that we do make sure that our services are actually supporting the veterans and veteran families, but also we have a significant number of families who have members that are acting in the forces as well, because obviously, you know, particularly in the Navy and the Army. So I just wanted to think this is a very important part of our population, and I think we need to give it some special attention within that. So that's why I just wanted to raise that. I know it's on the February, and perhaps in the February's one we can actually ask and ask representatives, perhaps from the British Legion and other SAFRA, etc., perhaps come along and speak to us. Thank you.
Thank you for that. What do we think about that? Or is that something that fits in with us or somewhere else?
We wouldn't be able to do it within time scale, Chairman.
I did wonder about that, but maybe in some other forum, but I hear what you say. That it should be kept high profile. Yeah, okay, thank you. Anybody else got any comments or questions on forward plan? No? Then we move on to a work plan. Members, the work plan, thoughts, questions, anything? Are you all happy with the work plan as it stands? Seem happy? Yes, members all happy with the work plan? Yep. Okay. I hear nobody shouting for anything, then we shall move on to members' question time. Councillor Quirk.
Last week, they've issued the information about the COVID-19 business grant funding scheme. In the past, people who applied initially for support to the COVID automatically got their second payment. Do that happen now, or will they have to reapply?
Councillor Jones-Evans.
So there's ongoing discussions regarding this. I think there was even a meeting this morning with government civil servants to clarify the situation. There'll be a press release being drafted and I think it's going to be going out on Monday. That's the plan. Friday's going to be some testing of the portal for people who have to apply. There's stricter guidance this time from government, and a few more checks and balances that have to be done as well. So they've sort of tightened things up a bit, but everything will be made very clear. Revs and Benefits are working already on collecting some data they need. So there will be an application process, but we will make sure that that message has gone out far and wide.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Quirk.
Will that go out directly to people who have applied previously?
I think because it's sector specific, so I don't know if we'll be contacting them directly. Yeah, John Metcalfe can assist with that. I think it's.
Yeah, Chairman. Obviously, I think this element of the agenda is for questions for the committee, not necessarily cabinet members, but happy to help with this one. I think there are two funds. There's the Omicron Hospitality Fund, which is a grant that's given based on the nature of the business and business rates. That one people have to apply for, but they have to contact us and make an application. Then there's a second one, which I think you referred to, which was the AIG, that I always forget what AIG stands for, but it's effectively our discretionary grant fund for affected businesses. That grant application process will open on the 24th of January. Again, it's by application, and all the details will be found on the council's website, so we'll promote it far and wide. But we won't go through a process of writing to all the businesses again because the criteria has changed, as Councillor Julie Jones-Evans has said. Criteria is very set for the Omicron Hospitality Fund. We've got a bit of flexibility around the AIG, but again, pretty well set by government, but different to last time.
It's the time scales as well that are very tight. We have to work towards as well. I think all the information needs to get out there as soon as we can. Everyone needs to let everyone know.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else? No more questions. Then meeting is over and I shall exit stage left. Thank you.